Hey guys, today's video is going to be an RV upgrade video. This one is we changed out the generator from the factory Generac generator to an Onan. The backstory on it was when we bought this RV, I was actually excited about it because the generator only had 50 hours on it. And the problems that we ran into pretty quickly after, especially in the summer, would be it would run for a little while. You really couldn't set your watch to how long it would run because sometimes it'd be 10-15 minutes and other times it would be hours. And it would randomly stop making power. Now the generator would stay running, but it would stop producing power. It seemed like it was a heat-related issue, and so we tried to get some more coolant to it, make sure the fans were going and all that other stuff. Coolant meaning not really liquid coolant, but just better airflow. And I wasn't able to have any success with that. And I also brought it to a couple different repair shops over the years and spent hundreds to, I think, $1,000 or $2,000 dollars worth of repair money on it, and it still wasn't getting any better. So in June of 2020, I had finally had enough, and I started looking around and found that the cost of a brand new one just simply didn't make sense for a rig as old as ours. But I found one at an RV scrapyard for $2,800. And with this one, we got real lucky. It came out of a 2007 Tiffin Allegro, and it had 178 hours on it, and it actually looked brand new when we picked it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of go over what we did, the modifications that were needed with it, because it is a substantially larger unit, not in power production, but as far as the actual casing of it and the internal workings of it. So I'll show you guys the modifications that we had to do in order to make it work. So now we'll go ahead and show you guys the new generator and the modifications that were done. Just bear in mind it's going to be a lot of camera moving. I'm going to have to climb up underneath it. Not a whole lot of good lighting in there, so I'll do what I can do. So this is the generator that we went with. As you can see, it is an enclosed box. That makes it significantly quieter than what the old one was. And I'll also do a demonstration to show you guys how loud it is with it open versus closed. But you can probably see, like here, there's a bunch of marks, and here as well. None of that was actually there when we bought it, but because we had such a difficult time getting this thing lined up perfectly, some of the problems that we ran into is like this corner here, which scrape into here, because we had to fabricate our own brackets with this and the existing hanging bracket, which is here and here, which were initially here and here. So we ended up spreading it out pretty significantly, and then this pan is welded to these brackets and bolted as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the engine running with it open and then with it closed, and then we'll climb under and I'll show you guys that. So as you can hear, it is very loud standing in front of it. This is actually still significantly quieter than the other generator was. I'll go ahead and get a better shot of the generator itself. And here is how loud it is with the service door closed, which you can see it's significantly quieter. I mean, you can even have a conversation standing right in front of it. And then when we close the door, it's so much better. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera around. So I'm sitting an arm's length away. The microphone is sitting on my chest. So it's completely possible to have a reasonable toned conversation standing right next to it. And the problem that we ran into with our other one is if you're standing here, you couldn't even hold a conversation with somebody, on top of the loss of power issues that we continuously had with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the generator off, climb underneath it, try to get some good pictures of the modifications that we had to make to the bay and the surrounding items so it would fit. And then I'll also talk about the wiring stuff and different things that we had to do in a moment. So this clip we're gonna have to do from the phone because the other camera is too big to get into these areas. So these are the bolts. So the way that this works is this bracket here goes from the frame of the RV back there and it bolts to this right here. Then those bolts, like that one there where my finger's at, and then another one back there, bolts to a Z plate that goes from here to here. And it's like that on both parts, on both hanger brackets. There's a bolt and there's the other bolt back there. So I'll climb under and show you guys what we did here. Let me back up a little bit. So these are the plates. This is the Z plate. It's welded here and it's welded here. And that's how it's mounted. So the whole generator is literally just held up with 4 bolts. That's why we changed it over to grade 8 bolts. So the other thing that we had to do was we had to replace the fuel line. We had to change the remote cable. So this one right here is the remote cable that came with the other generator. I left all that intact and just ran a whole new one. Here it came in at like 65 feet, I think. So the remainder of it's here. On this side, on the back of the mud flap, we ended up having to extend the filler hose because it was only about a foot before. We don't really run into any issues with it, with this little kink in it, because there's still plenty of flow. This one right here though does give us some issues from time to time with it thinking that the tank is full or what have you. So I need to slide it down here further just to take the kink out of that right there. But this is really kind of the worst part of the whole project, is because this hose used to run right here. So we ended up having to turn this at an angle a little bit, scoot the fuel lines over, and then get a longer hose to join them together. Other than that, I mean, there's a little bit of mild welding. You got to make the bracket, weld the Z bracket, I guess you can call it, to the plate, and then new bolts. All of the hardware that we're using here, with the exception of this plate here, is what the previous generator sat on. These right here, these bolts here are the bolts that used to be used to hold the other generator in place. So really all we did was build a new bracket here, this new bracket, weld it in, and push the brackets way out. So yeah, this is definitely a project I would recommend if you're reasonably handy and needing a new, larger generator. Hope you guys enjoyed this. So this is our wall control for our solar and battery system. It can also be done from our phones. It works out real well. I personally like having this because at any given time I can walk by, push the button, and very quickly, easily see what it's doing. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the generator section, which I was mentioning a few moments ago, and show you guys that. So this part of the settings, you can see we are currently highlighted on the generator start stop option. So whenever I go over, I can see the state, which shows stopped, whether it's got an error or not. The total runtime, that's how long I had it running when I had the wire set directly over here, when all it would do was fire it. So it's ran, my inverter system has run the generator automatically for 7 minutes. Start functionality is on. You can also manually start it from back here, which is another thing I'm real interested in, because otherwise, in order to start it, we've got to go up to the front, climb over whatever might be next to the driver's seat, and push that button down. It'd just be easier if we could do it over here. We also have an option where we could set a daily run time, so it will automatically start it daily and run it for a certain amount of time. And there's different settings under here. In other words, under which conditions do we want it to start. Loss of communication, stop the generator. Do not run the generator when AC1 is in use. And all these different little parameters that we can set to have the generator automatically kick on. We can even set quiet hours. So if you're in a place where you're not really supposed to be running the generator for anywhere from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., you can set that lockout also, so the generator won't randomly fire up next to a tent at 3 a.m. So these are just some of the general settings that I am very interested in taking advantage of. I just need to do a little bit more research and get there.